The monastery stood silent, high above the valley, its ancient stones watching a war inch closer, day by day. Monte Cassino had weathered centuries, plagues, empires, invasions. Founded in the 6th century by Saint Benedict, it had been a place of solitude, faith, and shelter. But in 1944, the war came crawling up the Italian hills, and the monastery found itself in the eye of a storm it had no part in creating. The Allies were pushing north. The Germans had dug in. They transformed Italy's rugged spine into a fortress, the Gustav Line. Hills were fortified, valleys were mined, rivers became killing zones, and the monastery of Monte Cassino loomed above it all, perched like a silent sentinel, its bell tower rising through mist and smoke. Intelligence was murky. Some Allied commanders believed German troops were using the abbey as a vantage point to direct artillery. Others weren't so sure, but the suspicion was enough. On the morning of February 15, 1944, American bombers filled the sky over Cassino. Below, civilians and monks sheltered in the stone crypts and chapels. Then, the bombs fell. Tons of explosives tore through thousand-year-old walls. Dust and flame swallowed the cloisters. Priceless texts and frescoes turned to ash. Over 100 non-combatants were killed in the blast, monks, townspeople, and children. And in the silence that followed, the Germans moved in. Until then, they had deliberately avoided occupying the monastery. But now that it was rubble, it offered perfect defensive cover. Fallschirmjäger, German paratroopers, crept into the ruins and turned them into a fortress. Machine guns were positioned behind crumbled arches. Snipers nestled between broken pillars. A place of worship became a stronghold. This was the moment the war shifted from brutal to surreal, when Allied soldiers realized they were fighting for and against the shattered bones of a holy place. The town of Cassino below was already a graveyard. Allied troops attempted repeated crossings of the Rapido River, often in broad daylight under withering fire. They were gunned down in droves. Tanks became trapped in mud and debris. British, American, Indian, New Zealand, Moroccan, and French colonial forces were all thrown into the fight. None succeeded. Each attack was met with relentless resistance. The Germans held every ridge, every crevice. The terrain was steep, and the weather cruel. Rain turned paths into rivers. Snow fell in April. Soldiers froze at night, then burned by day beneath the Italian sun. Sleep was rare. So was hope. There was a fourth assault, launched in May. It was led by the Polish Second Corps, men exiled from their homeland and fighting for redemption. They advanced at night, inch by inch, under artillery fire and falling stone. The air was thick with smoke and dust. Dead bodies lined the trails. The mountain groaned with the sound of war. And finally, after 4 months of fighting, Monte Cassino fell. On May 18th, a lone Polish soldier climbed the last slope and planted his nation's flag atop the ruins. Below him lay a valley soaked in blood. The bell tower was gone. The abbey was dust. The only music was a Polish bugler playing a mournful hymn over the bones of the battlefield. The cost was staggering. Over 55,000 Allied casualties, nearly 20,000 Germans, thousands of civilians dead or displaced, entire regiments erased. The town of Cassino was no more, and the road to Rome, still another month away. Monte Cassino was a victory, but it felt like a funeral, a mountain taken, but only by burying thousands at its feet. Thank you for listening to Last Post History. Subscribe for more haunting moments that shape the world, one echo at a time.